On Get Up, let's run the floor. Hey, Jay Williams, the Celtics beat Memphis yesterday. Boston has won 9 straight. In the Eastern Conference, which team has the best chance to bump Boston?
Hey, Monica, I'm going to bring Greeny to the R&B world. Heat Sweat. Nobody, Greeny, not the Knicks, not the Cavs. Nobody is going to compete with Boston in the Eastern Conference. Sorry to tell you.
You buying that, Ron?
I'm there. I'm there in the Eastern Conference. I think the Cavs are going to put up a formidable contest should they run into one another, but I think I got the Celtics coming out of that.
Windman, you made a point about this road trip in our meeting this morning that I'm not sure everybody is aware of, but it fascinated me. Go.
I'm not sure you've heard, Greeny, but the Celtics have quite an impressive history. Well, never in the history of the Celtics franchise have they ever gone 6-0 on a road trip. We haven't even seen a team go 6-0 on a trip since the height of the Warriors' powerhouse run last decade. That's what this team just did. They just dominated on the road. And more impressively, Kristaps Porzingis is looking the best he has all season, which is pretty much the death knell for anybody who's hoping to beat this team 4 out of 7 in the East.
All right, so the Eastern Conference may belong to the Celtics. The Western Conference may belong to the Thunder. And, Windy, they won their 10th in a row last night. And you had a very good meeting this morning. Windy was the meeting MVP. You made a very interesting observation about OKC as well.
Well, look, it's April 1st, Greeny, and this is no joke. The Thunder haven't had their 13th loss yet, which means 70 is still in play. They have 7 games left if they win all 7, and they're 18-2 since the All-Star break, and one of those losses was in overtime. They will have 70 wins. Now, I don't think they're going to make it a priority, but this team is 120-37 over the last 2 regular seasons. This is an absolute machine. They are, even in games where they sit their star players, they tend to win. Their last 3 games of the season are on the road, but they are all against teams that are tanking. If they get through the 2 games with the Lakers and a road game in Houston on Friday, I would almost say if they win on Friday in Houston, let's start talking about it.
We could be talking about a 70-win OKC team in the Western Conference this year. You know, look, there have been 2 teams that have done it. 69 was the mark forever. The Bulls got to 72. The Warriors took it to 73. We'll see if Memphis goes for it. Let me go back to the Lakers, though. We opened the show with the highlight. They beat the Rockets last night. But this is very interesting. LeBron James is in, right now as we speak, a 7-game stretch in which he has not scored more than 25 points. That's the longest drought for him in a decade. LeBron has not been his team's leading scorer in any of those 7 games. And it does bring up an interesting question. And Windy, I'll start with you on this, but I want everyone in on this topic. LeBron James and the Lakers are going to try to do something in the next few months that Hembo and I put our heads together this morning, has legitimately only been done once in the history of major American sports. And that is rely heavily on a player 40 years old or older to win a championship. Tom Brady stands alone. He's the only player to do it. There have been 40-year-olds who've been contributors. But to depend on a player of that age, as much as this team is going to depend on LeBron in the playoffs, it's only happened once before, and it's never happened in the NBA. So, Windman, you start the conversation there on perspective. LeBron coming back from the groin injury. We're talking about the 7 straight games here, how they handle the rest of this regular season. What's your take?
Yeah, I think the groin injury is what you're worried about because LeBron has had some soft tissue injuries over the last few years when he's been overused. I'm not worried about the scoring. You can really tie that to a slump in 3-point shooting. If you go back to, coming back from the injury, I think he's shooting 19% on threes. And the 3-pointer is an important part of his game, but offense is not the big thing for the Lakers. I know they'll score enough points to win. I want to see how they defend. And LeBron's defense has been good despite coming back from that groin injury. But that's what you're worried about. You're worried about overuse. And the thing about it is the Lakers' depth isn't tremendous, and you are going to need... it's hard to take LeBron out of the game when it's an important game. Coaches for 20 years have said that. Last night was a very important game. LeBron almost played 40 minutes. So it's a hard thing to do for J.J. Redick. But if he breaks down, they don't have a chance anyway. So they're going to have to ride him.
So, Jay, Will, you were making this point in our earlier conversation. When you see how much they needed from LeBron in particular to beat Houston last night, the idea that they're going to get through multiple 7-game series asking that much of a 40-year-old player it's a tough one. Again, it's literally never happened in NBA history. What's your thought on it, Jay Will?
Well, that's why I don't think the Lakers are going to come out of the West. And it's just not a LeBron thing. I think it's a team thing defensively due to the lack of personnel that typically they would need. I think they're still a piece away from getting over the hump. And it's the wear and tear and the cumulative effect of the war of attrition that you saw what they had to exert last night on the defensive end. And if that's happening against Houston, they're going to need more of that against OKC, and they're going to need LeBron, Luka, and AR to compete at a high level offensively. I just don't see that happening. It's not saying it can't happen. I think the probability is not in their favor to come out of the West.
Monica.
I will add to that, Jay, as much as we are focused on LeBron, and that's accurate, Greeny, because he's certainly the centerpiece of this Lakers organization. Last night, you got 12 of 27 from three from your two role players in Gabe Vincent and Dorian Finney-Smith. And we all have covered playoffs long enough to know that when you get to a playoff series, right, your role players are supposed to be able to steal you one. But in general, it's your centerpiece guys. Like, can you bank on that sort of efficiency from your role players as you go through a series? Because last night required the Lakers to play in a way, as far as their engines, that we are not accustomed to them playing offensively.
Yeah, and
Monica, Houston played zone last night. It's not like they were in their face. They played zone a ton of possessions.
And to circle back to the point Wendy made at the beginning about the importance of home court advantage, my old buddy Jalen Rose always used to say to me, role players always play better at home than they do on the road. You can count on LeBron and Luka anywhere on planet Earth, but those guys tend to play better at home, so home court advantage could become critical. We'll see if the Lakers can hold on to 4, maybe even get up to 3. Meanwhile, we got the Final Four set in the women's game last night. The final Elite 8 games taking place. The 1-seed USC playing again, unfortunately, without Juju Watkins. Taking on the 2-seed UConn. Juju there in spirit in every conceivable way, but this night belonged, Monica, to Paige Becker.
She's coming off of a 40-piece to get her team into the Elite 8, and so she's going to, spoiler alert, finish this one with 31 and 6 assists to help UConn get past USC. Paige Becker's locked in as a scorer. Oh, is a game changer for the Huskies.
She and Sarah Strong combined for 28 in the first half as they opened up a big lead in the second quarter. UConn up 11 there. Here's more from Paige as she becomes the third all-time UConn scorer, passing Nafisa Collier. UConn a 13-point lead, and then more from Paige Beckers. As you mentioned, 31 points plus 3 boards, 6 assists, and the Huskies are going on. Gino's team going back to the Final Four for the second consecutive year, where they will take on UCLA. It's the 16th Final Four in the last 17 seasons for UConn, but they haven't won a title since 2016. They are now, however, the favorites to win. UCLA has the longest odds at plus 750. That will be the matchup on Friday night. The Final Four games are UCLA and UConn. South Carolina's second favorite as they get set to play Texas. Monica, who do you like next weekend, Friday night, and then on into Sunday?
Listen, Greeny, I ain't no punk, so I ain't going to switch up now, even though UConn looked fantastic going into the Final Four. My original bracket had UCLA pulling this thing off behind Lauren Betts and Kiki Rice. Now, I will say that UConn looks as good as they've looked at any point in the season, and I understand Paige Beckers acknowledging the tradition of UConn Huskies bringing home the hardware. On the other side of the bracket, though, when you look at South Carolina, they have figured out different ways to win. They were down versus Indiana, down versus Maryland. They're now into the Final Four. And then Texas, to me, they're sort of the sleeper in all of this, because the last time Texas won a national championship was 1986 under Jody Conrad. Like, they are one of the traditional powers in women's basketball, but you got to go back a little bit of a while for them to have actually hung the banner. They got to the Final Four in 2003. So anyway, I say all that to say, I'm going to stick with my original bracket, even though I only got 2 of my Final Four teams right. I'm still looking at UCLA. I think Lauren Betts is that dynamic, that supporting cast around her, Jaquez, Rice, Coach Corey Close. I think there's a variety of ways that they can play on both sides of the ball that make them a threat in this.
That will be the matchup on Friday night. Let me show you when the games are. Again, the Final Four Friday here on ESPN. Texas and South Carolina are the early games.
Ở đâu? Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn làm vòng, và hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là tôm sú. Mọi người, hôm nay vòng của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là tôm biển. Bây giờ mình bắt đầu làm nhé.
Cái chuyện ra chuyện cái chuyện nó chỉ là nổi bật chơi ra một bộ phim